Well, there is no sign yet when Australia will open to overseas travellers. Qantas CEO Alan Joyce has told Sky News Qantas is setting itself up so it can last until 2023 without unrestricted international travel, while the outgoing Chief Medical Officer Brendan Murphy says Australia's international borders are unlikely to fully reopen until a vaccine is found for COVID-19, and that is years away. Joining me now live is aviation expert Geoffrey Thomas. Jeff, great to see you. Thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
Firstly, how can the airline industry survive what could be potentially years?
Well, look, the issue here is that overseas airlines are resuming international travel. Overseas countries are less restrictive than Australia at the moment. We have a policy, or we have a goal of zero COVID-19 cases, whereas overseas countries, many of them are quite happy, not quite happy, but are content to have a certain level. So it's a matter of where you pitch your health position on COVID-19. But if we do keep our borders closed, hard borders closed on the international scene for another 2 or 3 years, it'll have a catastrophic effect on our airlines.
Is Qantas suspending all of its international travel until 2021 reflective of the Australian government's travel ban policy?
Yes, it is. It's reflective of what the government has indicated, and that is it doesn't expect to lift the borders until the middle of next year. Now, there are so many factors that come into play here. Again, as I mentioned, the positioning of the country. Now, it's interesting because the Prime Minister, Mr. Morrison, has indicated that he wants state borders to be lifted. Now, for Western Australia is saying, no, we're not. We were going to do it on August the 8th, but with the Victorian blow-up with COVID cases, we are not going to do it. So within Australia, you've got resistance to opening borders. At the same time, you have the Prime Minister saying, I want those borders open because we need this for the economy, and it's a very important element of kickstarting the economy. So it'll be interesting then to see how he translates that into the international space. Clearly, some countries are on top of this: New Zealand, Vietnam, Taiwan, Thailand, possibly Japan. You can add into the mix. Whereas other countries like the United States and the United Kingdom, incidentally, two of our major trading partners and tourist destination, they are way behind the curve on this. So there are so many dynamics to this. It makes planning for Qantas and other airlines an absolute nightmare.
Difficult choice Australia faces, that's for sure. Now, this week, of course, Qantas announced it will make 6,000 of its 29,000 workers redundant. As a consumer, will flights now be harder to come by and therefore perhaps more expensive?
Look, no, I think once the state borders are all lifted, and let's hope it's in the next couple of months, then I would see that Australians want to travel. I mean, we of all people in the world want to travel. It's in our genes, quite frankly. And it's been proven that way, that we really want to travel. So if we can't travel overseas, we'll travel somewhere in Australia, somewhere in New Zealand. Hopefully the New Zealand travel bubble comes into existence, and you'll have Australians and New Zealanders crisscrossing the country, going to tourist destinations. People want to get out, they want to travel. So I see both Qantas and Virgin's domestic networks being quite robust by the end of the year.
Speaking of Virgin, we know that this week Bain Capital has bought Virgin Australia. What do you make of the successful bid?
Look, it's a very good bid. I mean, Bain is well credentialed. They've got very deep pockets. The funds they've committed are already allocated internally within the organisation. I think the numbers are 600 million injection into the airline to keep it flying and to get it back flying again. 600 million in travel credits that are to be honoured, and about 450 million set aside for staff entitlements. And of course, they're taking on the secured liabilities. We don't know exactly what the detail is on the unsecured creditors, how much they're going to get out of this. But look, a very well credentialed company. I have I'm waiting to get the detail on exactly where they're going to position the airline. Cyrus Partners were going to push it more up towards Qantas. Bain seemed to think that a middle of the market position is the best for it, not to try and take on Qantas in the business class space, business market space, but position it as a real value operation. But at the same time, you've got fantastic staff at Virgin, fabulous people, very professional, very passionate. So the product has always been absolutely top of the line. I think what we're going to lose is French champagne and other frills and celebrities and those sorts of nice add-ons that work in the corporate space but don't really work in the middle of the market.
Well, just on that, Virgin, as you said, has said that it will be going mid-market under the new buyer. In terms of the corporate travel space overall, do you see a reduction in perhaps business class capacity going forward?
Look, there could be. That's an interesting question, Danica, because we've relied on Virgin Australia to sort of keep Qantas honest, so to speak, in the business class space. But with them pulling away from that to an extent, they're still going to keep business class in the 737s, which is just standard seats with more leg room. They're going to do away, I think, with the beds they're going to do away with the A330s, which have the beds. So, yes, there will be a reduction in capacity in that space. But of course, at the same time, a lot of corporates are going to be saying, well, in this COVID-19 world, I can't afford to pay the full cop on business class to have a bed on Qantas. I'll take the middle of the market road. So it may actually be quite a clever strategy, particularly for the next few years where belts are being tightened.
An interesting time for Australian Airlines, that's for sure. Geoffrey Thomas, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
It's a pleasure.